Does everyone have their handout? Good. So this 2 days we're following a Shamatha retreat. Remember, Shamatha is a Sanskrit word, often translated into English as calm abiding. And Shamatha is a concentration practice. It's a practice to develop our attention skills, to develop single-pointed concentration. And in the Buddhist spiritual path, there are many levels of concentration we can develop, but the minimum level of concentration we need to develop is this level called shamatha. So often the concentration practice in Buddhism is simply called shamatha practice. And as with every practice, practice has two parts: meditation and then what we do for the rest of the day, daily life. And within the meditation practice, as we've seen, we can break up the meditation into two parts: the preparation and the actual meditation. And in the preparation, we're talking about, of course, preparing body, speech, mind, meaning having a good posture, letting go of any negativity, and then bringing the mind really into the present moment with a good motivation. So preparing ourselves well for the meditation. And then in the actual meditation, of course, in this shamatha practice, we're looking at four elements of the practice: the qualities that we're cultivating in this practice, the object that we are focusing on, the tools we use in the practice, and then what faults we might likely encounter and how to overcome these faults in the practice. And so far we looked at the qualities, and we saw that in general in this practice there are two qualities we are cultivating: stability and clarity. In other words, a stable mind, being able to focus without becoming distracted, and to be able to focus in a very clear way, to see the object clearly. But we added a third quality, relaxation, that I think we particularly need to pay attention to in our modern society, because we tend to come into meditation practice with a lot of tension, a lot of agitation, a lot of stress. And then when we meditate, as we normally do in our life, when we want to do something or focus, we tense even more. So if we bring that into meditation, we're going to have all sorts of difficulties in our meditation practice. So the very first thing we need to do in this and other meditation practices is we need to learn how to relax. Relax the body, relax the mind. And on the basis of a relaxed body and mind, then we can work on stabilizing our attention and then making it more clear. So these were the qualities that we're cultivating in this practice. And then in terms of objects, we looked at 3 objects that we're going to be focusing on in this retreat. And I picked these 3 objects because I think in our modern society, each of those 3 objects has a lot of benefit for us, particularly in our modern society. Of course, there are many other objects that are possible to focus on. Any of you who've been doing any study in Tibetan Buddhism, often in this practice they talk about focusing on the mental image of a Buddha as an example. A lot of benefit there, but many people find that very complicated, very difficult. Also, in some traditions, they say you can't even focus on the breath. Okay, start by picking a stick or a pebble or some physical object, put it in front of you and just look at it. Use that as a starting point if you're very agitated and distracted. So you could start even there. But again, we're focusing on these 3 objects because I think in our modern society, each of them have their own unique benefits. The one we're working with today is the breath, the physical sensations of the breath, and that is something that is most widely emphasized, I think, in most Buddhist traditions. And within that, we're working on 3 variations: the full body, which we did in the last practice, the meditation before the break, Simply noticing sensations anywhere in the body associated with the breathing. They're a very diffuse object, and this can be very helpful for working with relaxation, to relax ourselves, particularly using the Shavasana, the corpse posture, lying flat on your back. If you have a lot of tension in the body, then that can also be very helpful. Use that posture, simply noticing sensations in any part of the body as you breathe, just working on relaxing the body, relaxing the mind. Then the second variation of the breath practice is the abdomen, which we're shortly going to come into in this session, focusing in the area of the abdomen, the rising and lowering of the abdomen. Again, a fairly large area of focus, quite good for improving stability of our attention. And then this afternoon we're going to be looking at the nostrils practice, focusing on this tiny area here at the entrance of the nostrils, much more subtle object, and because it's more subtle, it can be very helpful for improving the clarity of our attention. And then tomorrow we're going to be working with the other two objects. The first one is the mind, simply observing our own mind and whatever is arising in our mind, thoughts, emotions, memories. Many people find this much more challenging because we're not really used to observing the mind. If something comes up in our mind, we simply identify with it, we follow it, or if we don't like it, we try and suppress it. So that's our instant reaction to things coming up in our mind. So we're not really in the habit of observing our mind. And because of that, unfortunately, because of the habit of always following or suppressing, we are often tormented by our own mind. We're often the slaves of our mind. Whereas in this practice, by simply observing the mind, not getting caught up in it, not needing to suppress, we can become the masters of our mind instead of the slaves of our mind. So for this reason, I think many of us will find this practice very beneficial. We'll look at that tomorrow. And then lastly, the third object actually technically is called no object, sometimes called awareness of awareness practice. And in this practice, we're simply resting in awareness itself, simply being aware of being aware. Now, many people find this even more challenging, and one of the reasons is that it's too simple. It's too simple, because we always want to do something. What am I doing? Tell me what do I got to do? Whereas this practice is not about doing, it's more about being. We don't know how to be. We're always doing. We don't know how to be anymore. Whereas this practice is about being, just resting in awareness itself. It's so simple. That's why people find it difficult, because it's too simple. There's nothing to do. But enormous benefits, because if we can simply rest in awareness, what we're going to notice is that actually awareness or mind is still, open, spacious. And if we can rest in that state, then we can bring that into our daily life. Meaning in our daily life, we can be in that very still, open, spacious state in the midst of all of the stuff that's going on in our life without getting caught up in it. And also by resting in awareness, we get to sort of have an intuitive feeling for the nature of our own mind. And that's very much a Vipassana practice. So that leads us into the Vipassana practice. So we're going to be looking at that awareness of awareness practice tomorrow. So they're the objects we're using. Now what I'd like to move on to is the tools. And for this we'll use the handout that you all have. The two main tools we use in this practice are mindfulness and introspection. Mindfulness is the translation of the original Sanskrit word smrti. The Pali word is sati. Both of those two words literally mean to remember, to not forget the object. So mindfulness is our ability to remember the object. Our ability to hold the object without forgetting it, without becoming distracted. So this is how mindfulness is originally defined in Buddhism. It's our ability or faculty of being able to hold the object, remembering the object without becoming distracted, not forgetting it. Whereas nowadays, of course, mindfulness is very popular in the modern world, good thing, but often the way mindfulness is defined in a lot of the modern traditions is a little bit different. And mindfulness is often defined in the modern traditions as something like a non-judgmental awareness of whatever is arising in the present moment. Very good. But this is not how mindfulness was originally defined. So we need to be aware of that how the word mindfulness is now used in a lot of modern traditions, a little bit different, just to be aware of that. And unfortunately, when mindfulness is often presented in this way, this non-judgmental awareness of whatever is arising in the present moment, often people misunderstand what we mean by non-judgmental awareness. Often people feel non-judgmental awareness means accept everything. Everything's okay. If we do that, ethical disaster. Non-judgmental means don't react to things with aversion, hatred, jealousy. Non-judgmental means that. Non-judgmental doesn't mean don't evaluate things, just accept everything. This is a mess. So we need to be aware that when we see that, non-judgmental doesn't mean don't evaluate. Of course we need to evaluate whether things are beneficial or harmful. If we don't, it's a mess. Non-judgmental means don't react to things, whatever's arising. So the main tool is mindfulness. So mindfulness here again is simply our ability to hold the object without becoming distracted. And we see that in the diagram here on the front of your handout. You see right down the bottom the meditator, and in the meditator's hands, in the left hand is a rope, in the right hand a hook. The rope is symbolizing mindfulness, because we are tying our mind with the rope of mindfulness to the object. So that's why the symbolism of mindfulness is the rope, tying our mind to the object with the rope of mindfulness. Then we also have the hook in the right hand, and the hook...
Number 9.
Number 9?
Number 4.
Number 3 and 4.
Yeah, that's also
Number 3, yeah, so all these numbers on the front, of course, are described on the back. So 3 and 4 is mindfulness and introspection. So the second tool we need is introspection. Sometimes modern days called metacognition. It's our ability to monitor ourselves. So mindfulness is simply our ability to hold the object without becoming distracted. But then we need a second tool to monitor the mindfulness. How is our mindfulness going? Are we still on the object, or are we starting to become dull or distracted? So that's introspection's job. Introspection is quality control. Introspection is monitoring the mindfulness, and are we still on the object? Noticing if we're becoming dull or distracted. And then, of course, if we become dull or distracted, then we bring the mind back and reapply mindfulness. That's why introspection here is the hook, to hook the mind back when we notice that we've become dull or distracted. So these are the two main tools we use in the shamatha practice. The rope of mindfulness, holding the object, and then the hook of introspection, monitoring that. You know, are we still on the object, or are we becoming dull or distracted? So these are the two main tools. And these are very nicely summarized by a great Indian Buddhist master, Asanga, from the 4th century. He says, mindfulness and introspection are taught. For the first prevents the attention from straying from the meditative object, while the second recognizes that the attention is straying. So these are the two tools we use in the shamatha practice. Any questions about that? Okay. What we're going to do now is go back to the meditation practice, And what I'd like to do is, again, the breath practice. And like the previous one, we're going to focus a lot on the preparation. Then, again, to focus on the relaxation. And again, within that relaxation, what we tend to do now, of course, is in two modes. When we're in daily life, when we're focused, we're tense. When we're relaxed, we're dull. We're half asleep. That's our normal way of operating in daily life. Focused and tense. Relaxed, dull. What we need to do is combine those two. To be focused and relaxed. So we need to learn that. So here, of course, when we're talking about relaxing, we're not talking about relaxing as we normally do and get half asleep. Relaxation, not at the expense of our focus. So therefore here, when we're relaxing, we need introspection to monitor that relaxation. And if we're getting too dull, we need to sharpen the focus a little bit. So again, with this relaxation, it's not at the expense of whatever focus we have now. We're not drifting into some dull state. We're maintaining whatever level of focus we have and then relaxing on that basis. And so we're going to use these tools to hopefully try and get into that state of being focused but relaxed. Relaxed and focused. This is the combination we are trying to achieve. So we're going to be doing this again for 20 minutes. And then after that, we're going to look at the next point, the faults, which are all listed in a little nice table at the top up back here. How to overcome faults in the practice. And then we're going to move on to the abdomen practice after that. So that's what's coming for this rest of this session. But let's first start by doing another meditation. And again, focusing on the full body, meaning sensations anywhere in the body as we breathe, working on relaxation, but not at the expense of focus. So as always, we begin by preparing the body, setting it into a state of relaxation, stillness, and vigilance. And a vigilant posture is one where the back is nice and straight. So again, allowing the awareness to descend into the body, becoming aware of sensations throughout the body. And using the out-breath to relax and release any tightness or tension in any part of the body. And bringing the awareness to the area of the face, softening and relaxing all the muscles in the face. Paying particular attention to the area around the eyes. Allowing the entire body to become completely relaxed, completely at ease. And keeping the body as still as possible, avoiding any unnecessary movement or fidgeting, which will just cause distraction. Relaxing more deeply with each out-breath. And allowing the breathing to settle into its natural rhythm. Not trying to control or regulate the breath in any way. Simply allowing the breathing to flow naturally and effortlessly. And with each out-breath, letting go of any thoughts that may have arisen. Happily releasing them. and without dwelling in the past, and without anticipating the future. Simply allow the mind to come to rest in the stillness of the present moment. Simply focusing on the sensations of the breath throughout the body. Wherever you most easily notice sensations associated with the breathing. And using the rope of mindfulness to tie our mind to the object being the sensations of the breath throughout the body. And then using the hook of introspection to monitor that mindfulness. And if you notice that you've become distracted, then without getting upset, the first thing to do is simply relax. And then release the distraction and very gently return to focusing on the breath without clamping down more forcefully. So relax, release and return each time you notice that you've become distracted.